Viewer discretion advised. This story is incredibly brutal and dark, with scenes depicting animal abuse, rape, and torture. Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back to the show. Today's story is called Talonis, written by Drake Cooper. This story will also be featured on Godless, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description below. With that, let's sit back, grip our seats, and enjoy the story. The dog's tail wagged rapidly as it nipped at Royce's hands, wanting to play. Royce wrapped his fingers around the collar, picking it up. The dog's friendly nature disappeared. A panic took over. The beagle puppy hung from his collar, trying to wiggle free from the evil child's grasp, fighting for every breath. Royce let him struggle for a moment, delighted at the power he held over this small creature. He raised the puppy above his head and, with one swift motion, slammed it to the ground. The dog's yelps echoed off the trees. This excited Royce even more. The beagle, still alive, tried to escape. Dragging his mangled leg behind him makes him slower, and Royce caught him. He wrapped both hands around the pup's throat and squeezed tightly. The dog kicked his feet, using them to unsuccessfully pry Roy's hands from around his airway. The frantic kick slowed, then stopped altogether. Roy watched the life leave the dog's eyes. This act of violence gives him a raging erection. He felt ashamed at first, but soon realized that no one was around but the lifeless corpse of the beagle puppy. His dirty little secret. Royce is a sick, perverted little fuck, and had been since hitting puberty. The urge to kill had been with him as long as he could remember. This was just the beginning of Royce's twisted childhood, of slaughtering helpless animals and masturbating on their lifeless corpses. Each kill would only become bloodier and more brutal until he found himself hunting bigger game. This new job will be good for us. Charlie painstakingly applied makeup, different shades and shadows to accentuate certain contours of her face. You worked out your 2-week notice. Why not stay home tonight and start the weekend early? Her husband suggested, placing his hands on her shoulder and rubbing them sensually. Besides, I can think of something we can do here that's much better than serving drunks at a shitty bar. He ran his fingertips along her collarbone and down the neckline of her dress with intentions of coping a feel. Charlie smacked his hand away. There will be plenty of time for that when I'm not working nights. I've made friends at that shitty bar and want to say goodbye properly. Charlie worked hard overcoming the mistakes of her past, and that work was finally paying off. Charlie and her daughter went through their nightly tradition they have grown accustomed to. The little girl walked her to the car hand in hand. After goodbye kisses, she ran back inside to her dad. Charlie didn't take her eyes off of the girl until she disappeared into the house, and they shut the door. The window curtains move to the side and the little girl gives one last wave before Mom heads off to work. A smile creeps across Charlie's face. She put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway, eager to get this work night over. On Royce's 18th birthday, his friends threw him a party, which he appreciated, but all he could think about was what he had planned for later that night. He allowed his friends to buy him a few shots because he would need the liquid courage. Royce made an early exit, making up an excuse to leave his party. He had spent the last 6 months scoping out a spot, an alley beside a pub. A bartender that worked there, Charlie, a brunette, covered in tattoos and always wore dark lipstick. Charlie routinely left the bar around 1 in the morning every Saturday and used the alley as a shortcut back to her apartment. The dark, dirty alley saw little traffic at that time of the night. It would make the perfect place to carry out his plan. He kneeled behind a dumpster, patiently waiting for his victim. a baseball bat clutched in his grip. His excitement was so overwhelming that the smell of trash and the dirty water leaking from the dumpster onto his ankle didn't affect him. The gory deaths of the animals he had slaughtered over the years played in his mind, sending a tingling sensation through his balls. He could feel the head of his erect cock pressing against his jeans. Then he heard it. The click of high heels on the pavement. It was her. He tightened his sweaty palms around the grip of the bat. The click of heels gradually grew louder and reached the opposite end of the dumpster. It was time. Roy stepped out from behind the dumpster, catching Charlie off guard. She let out a gasp and her eyes grew wide with fear. Roy swung the bat with everything he had. He heard a meaty thud as it connected with her temple. The follow-through folded her like a wet napkin. He stood over her, swung the bat once more like a golf club, and connected with the side of her face. The second blow disintegrated her eye on contact. Blood and a gel-like fluid streamed down her face and mixed on the hard pavement. Royce bent down, ran his finger through the fluid, and placed it on the tip of his tongue. The taste was better than he imagined. He took a moment to savor the salty flavor as it sent chills down his spine. Charlie took slow, labored breaths. The second blow may have been overkill. She was dying fast, and he knew his time was running short. Maybe he shouldn't have hit her so hard. Chalk this up as a learning experience for the next kill. Royce unzipped his pants, exposing his erect cock. He grabbed a handful of dark hair, pulled her head from the pavement, and plunged his dick in her eye socket. He stroked slowly in and out until it covered him with her juices. Now that I'm properly lubed, the real fun begins. He lifted her dress and hastily pulled down her underwear. She attempted a feeble kick, but the severity of her injuries left her helpless. A faint cry pleading for help left her lips, but it's not loud enough to draw attention. Royce slapped his hand over her mouth to shut her up anyway. The mixture of eye juice and blood did its job, and he easily slid inside of her. Charlie convulsed and her breathing shuddered. "Don't you die yet, bitch. I'm not done." He laid his entire body on her, looking into her one good eye while he continued to stroke. The convulsions stopped and she let out one last breath. He watched the light fade from her pupil, sending him to his breaking point. He pulled out, shoving his cock into his hands, blowing the load into his underwear. His sticky, crusted manhood would make for an uncomfortable ride home. But this was his poor attempt at not leaving any evidence behind. Royce flipped open the dumpster lid, scooped up Charlie's lifeless body, and dumped her in with yesterday's garbage. Once home, Royce put his clothes in the washer, showered, then rolled a joint. He relaxed on the couch, savoring his accomplishment. No more animal torture to get his rocks off. He has graduated to murder. Royce struck the lighter, touching the orange flame to the tip of the joint. He took a few puffs to stroke the blaze and let out a puff of smoke, then inhaled the vapors back into his nostrils. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Marathon played on the television, and the screams of Leatherface's victims make a nice background soundtrack for his smoking session. The THC took hold, and the adrenaline began to wear off. His tired body began to shut down, and he felt himself nodding off. A whisper in his ear jerked him awake. Royce opened his eyes to see Charlie straddling him, hovering over his flaccid cock. She looked down at him from her one eye and cracked an evil grin. He tried to move, but his arms and legs are restrained. Charlie slowly lowered herself down onto him, grinding her wet lips on the head of his dick. As terrified as he was in that moment, a tingle ran from his tip and down his shaft, causing his dick to stand at attention. Charlie ran her tongue from his nipple, down his torso and up the length of his cock, before placing the head between her lips. gently squeezing down with her teeth. Charlie made one-eyed contact with him before she bit down on his member. Blood flowed from between her teeth and down her chin as the smile returned to her face, pleased with his screams of agony. Royce jolted awake. He was still sitting on his couch with the screams of Leatherface's victim echoing in his ear. His vision was blurred. He ran his hand across his eyes until it cleared. He's not sure what to think about the dream. His conscience has never bothered him before. Why would it now? "That was fucked," he says, clicking off the television. The black screen revealed a pair of eyes staring back at him. "I'm about to make your dreams come true." A woman's voice came from behind him. He jumped to his feet and spun around to meet the gaze of what stood in front of him. A creature stood there in a long black dress and red boots, flowing red hair that hung down to her voluptuous ass. She stared at him across the room with red eyes. Two black horns sprout from just above her hairline. The air around her glowed red. "I'm about to show you the time of your life, big boy." She puckered her lips, smeared with black lipstick, and blew Royce a kiss, followed by a wink. The television blared back to life. A video of Manson's sweet dreams started to play. "Who are you?" Royce croaked. "I am here to take vengeance on behalf of an innocent soul. I have been called many names through the years. Fate, revenge, and karma being a few. But the name I like the most is Lex Talonis. But you can call me Lex for short. Charlie." His voice faded as his mind traveled back to what had happened hours before. The moment he went from being a sick, twisted pervert to a murderer. Yes, Charlie. She wasn't just some sleazy crack whore with no family or values. She was a daughter, a wife, and a mother. Her daughter is about to wake, walk to her room, to find her mother isn't there. She will never see her mom again because some scumbag killed her to get his rocks off. I will make sure that you take no one else. In a blink of an eye, Lex is standing in front of Royce. She gently caressed his cheek with the back of her hand, running it from one side of his face to the other. With the other hand, she roughly grabbed his member. "What's the matter? I don't do it for you? Maybe you like it rough." Lex placed her thumb on his chin, pulling his head up to look at her. She ran her thumb up and around the corner of his mouth, along the edge of his nose, before resting it on the corner of his eye. She applied pressure and drove her thumb deep into his socket. Royce screamed in agony. "Please stop!" Lex laughed. "I imagine Charlie would have said those same words to you, if she had been able." Lex wiggled her thumb around before finally dislodging his eye from its socket. She rolled it around in her hand before popping it into her mouth like a grape fresh off the vine. She ran her tongue up Royce's cheek, lapping up the tears flowing from his good eye. With a hand on his shoulder, she pushed him down to his knees. With her other hand, she hiked up her dress and revealed a large red dildo strapped to her body. She placed the head of the silicone on the bridge of his nose, inches from the empty, bloody eye socket. "Time to lube up," Lex said. A deep, evil laugh escaped her throat, sounding more demon than ladylike. "Please, God, no," Royce pleaded. "You would rather me go in dry? Suit yourself." She grabbed a handful of hair and pulled him to his feet, dropping his pants. Lex spun him around, driving his face into the top of the entertainment center that held the television, knocking it to the floor. She wasted no time shoving the dildo inside of him. Royce let out another agony-filled scream. The feeling of his anus ripping as the silicone entered made his knees weak. He would have dropped to the floor in a heap of pain and self-pity, if not for Lex holding him up by his head. His ass feels like a pig cooking rotisserie style over an open flame. The blood from his ripped hole eventually made the red dildo glide in and out easier, but the pain only worsened. The dildo burns hot, like a stick of rebar turned red by the flame of a torch. He felt his insides blister with each thrust. Lex removed her hand from the back of his head and hooked her 2 middle fingers in his empty eye socket, then pulled back, getting leverage for deeper penetration. One last plunge, and it felt like she shoved the dildo into his ribcage. She let out a moan like she just blew an immense load into his backside. Lex removed the oversized red dick, pulling part of his large intestine out with it. Royce's relief of the ordeal being over faded at the sight of his prolapsed rectum exposed between his legs. With shaky arms, he tried to pull his pants up to hide his shame. Lex planted her lips on his. Each second that passes, the paler Royce becomes. He tried to push her away but can't find enough strength. His lips cracked and his cheeks sink inward. The pupil in his eye turned white as Lex's kiss slowly drained his soul from him. She looked down at the withered corpse, admiring her work. Lex grabbed a handful of Royce's hair and, with one clean jerk, removed the head from the body and held it up at eye level to get a last look. One less scumbag on the streets. One more soul getting exactly what it deserves. In hell.